Dean rises late. The cool Beverly Hills winter light and Christmas decorations filtering through the curtains. His breathing has become shallow with advancing emphysema, but he insists on moving around the house unassisted. He sits in his favorite chair near the window overlooking Mountain Drive. A nurse offers breakfast. He waves her off with the gentle, "Later, maybe?" Dean asks his nurse to bring him old letters and photographs. He doesn't read them so much as hold them. Memories. Oh, those memories. More vivid now. A photo of him in his brief boxing career. Kid Crochet. He chuckles once, remembering getting his nose broken, ending the idea fast. Flashback. His father telling him, in Italian, "Dino, sei troppo bello per lasciarti colpire in faccia. Dino, you're too handsome to let them punch you in the face." Dean nods and laughs at his dad's backdoor compliment. Dino keeps sliding into the past, a memory of the smoky back rooms where the fights were booked, the ache in his ribs the next morning. 14-year-old Dino Crocetti tightened the fraying laces on his gloves while the old radiator hissed behind him. Everyone in the dingy Steubenville gym called him Kid Crockett, a name slapped on him because no one could pronounce Crocetti without tripping over it. He liked the way Kid Crockett sounded, sharp, tough, like he belonged in the ring. The overhead bulb flickered as he ducked between the ropes. Dino wasn't tall yet, but he had broad shoulders, fast hands, and a concrete jaw. His opponent that night was older, heavier, with a smug grin who thought he had already won. Dino bounced on the balls of his feet, loose, ready, a confidence and swagger that would someday glide across stages in Hollywood. The bell rang. Dino moved in like a cat, left feint, right hook. The crowd of steelworkers and mill boys roared as the bigger fighter staggered. For the first time, Dino felt it, that electric surge of confidence. He didn't know it yet, but this was his first taste of an audience. By the end of the round, the referee lifted his arm. Winner, Kid Crockett. Dino flashed a shy smile, the same smile the world would one day recognize. 1985, Beverly Hills. Dean Martin, gravely weakened after a lifetime of smoking, rests quietly in his darkened room. On the TV, an old telethon plays. Sinatra is working the crowd, teasing a possible Martin and Lewis reunion. Dean watches without moving, until a small smile breaks across his face.
Listen, I have a friend who loves what you do every year and who just wanted to come out and say, would you send my friend out, please? Where is he? Would you send him out here? Come here. All right, break it up. Break it up. What is this here? Break it up.
He doesn't say Jerry's name, but the glimmer in his eyes is for moments only the two of them would ever understand. The nurse passing by hears him murmur softly, almost to himself, 20 years, and the kid finally got me back on stage. Flashback, 1950s New York, the Copacabana marquee blazing, crowds surging, camera bulbs flashing like fireworks. Dean and Jerry, walking fast, young, unstoppable, rush down hotel corridors with a crush of screaming fans behind them. On stage, their timing is effortless, electric, a cultural explosion no one had ever seen before. They weren't just comedians. They were phenomenon. Bigger than Elvis. Bigger than the Beatles. before either existed. People adored them because, for all their fame, they still felt like regular guys having the time of their lives. A beautiful era, a moment in history never to be repeated. Two kids from humble beginnings suddenly peeking out hotel windows at hundreds of fans chanting their names. Dean always said he couldn't believe it. And Jerry, he loved every second. To the greatest comedy team of all time, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Still missed, still loved, always. December 8th, 1995, Beverly Hills. A slower day. The house is quiet today, quieter than usual, as if even the walls know he hasn't slept well. Dean wakes later than he intended, more fatigued today. The kind that sinks into his bones before he even swings his legs over the edge of the bed. The day drifts unhurried. He eats only a little. He flips through channels, finally turning off the television and closing his eyes. And then, in the stillness, the old reel begins to play. Flashback, from Steubenville to Hollywood. He's back in Ohio, just a kid again on North 4th Street. The cold air biting at his face, his mother calling him inside. He remembers the smell of laundry drying by the stove, his father humming in Italian. Those were the days he dreamed in secret. About singing, about boxing, about being someone else. Someone bigger than Steubenville would allow. How did I get from there to here? It still amazes him. The flashes come quick now. Him singing in back rooms and bars, smoke curling through dim lights. Then, his first recordings in that little studio. Nothing fancy. A microphone, a piano, a guy who kept saying, "Lean in closer, kid. The mic likes you." When he heard his own voice played back, warm and easy, he thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is how I get to Hollywood. And suddenly he was there. The clubs, the crowds, the laughter, the bright lights that made Steubenville feel 1,000 years away. Back in Beverly Hills, December 1995, Dean opens his eyes again. The room has darkened to shade. The fatigue returns, heavy but gentle. He sighs, not unhappily. "So that's how I got here," he whispers to no one in particular, and he lets the memories. December 9th. Gray skies, quiet hours. A gray morning settles over Beverly Hills. Dean wakes early, though he stays seated at the side of the bed for a long time. His breathing is shallow again. He moves slowly through the house. Outside, a winter sun struggles to break through the clouds. Inside, memories break easily. Flashback, Steubenville winters. The boxing days. He's young again, back on North 4th Street. Snowbanks along the curb. That familiar mix of coal smoke and cold iron drifting through the air. He remembers pulling on battered gloves inside a drafty gym, the old trainer barking, "Keep your guard up, Crockett! You want to eat through a straw?" Kid Crockett, that was the name they gave him. One night he took a punch so hard he saw stars, and for a moment the stars looked like spotlights. That's when I knew I'd rather croon than get my teeth knocked out. He sees himself in cheap suits borrowed from cousins, singing with local bands at Ohio and Pennsylvania dance halls, whoever needed a smooth baritone to chase the night. He stood in the glow of jukebox lights, watching couples sway, thinking, maybe I belong on a bigger stage than this? Maybe someday. He remembered the first time someone said, "Dean, you've got something." He didn't believe it, but he kept singing. Then the road widened. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, back to Steubenville, Then finally New York, smoke-filled clubs, where he learned to let the music breathe around the audience. "Slow down, kid," the band leader once told him. "You sing like you know something the rest of us don't." He did. He knew how far he wanted to go. Hollywood wasn't a dream so much as a dare. He arrived with little more than a voice, a suit, and enough charm to bluff his way past more than one locked door. Took gigs that barely paid. But Hollywood was a place where one night, just one, could change everything. For Dean, that night came in a small club, where the lighting was so poor he joked he had to feel his way onto the stage. But the crowd liked him. The club owner liked him. Word spread. The work kept coming. Then came the booking that shifted the entire course of his life. He met Frank Sinatra. The first time he truly crossed paths with Frank was backstage at the Paramount. Frank was already Frank. Sharp suit, cigarette, eyes that missed nothing. Dean wasn't intimidated. He never was when it mattered. Frank looked him over and said, "You're the guy everyone keeps talking about. The Italian Bing Crosby, right?" Dean smirked. "Only on payday." Frank laughed. "You're all right, pal. Just two guys recognizing the same thing in each other. Rhythm, style, timing, and the ability to own a room without trying too hard." Before long, Frank was telling people, "You gotta hear Dean Martin. The cat's smooth enough to iron a shirt with his voice." They weren't brothers yet, not even close, but the spark was there. Back to December 9th, 1995. Evening arrives early. Dean grows quieter. He watches the sun vanish behind gray clouds and whispers, almost to himself, "Frank, Jerry, the Rat Pack. A hell of a ride, wasn't it?" He closes his eyes, letting the memories warm him from the inside. December 10th, 1995, Sunday. Dean wakes before dawn, not because he's rested, but because the night couldn't hold him any longer. The nurse helps him to the kitchen table, where he sits with a cup of coffee he barely touches. His hands tremble slightly. His voice is thin, but his humor flickers now and then like a pilot light that refuses to die. "Cold morning, sweetheart," he murmurs. "Feels like Ohio again." He grows quiet, lost in that thought. And then the memories begin drifting back, pulling him toward the years when everything was changing faster than he could keep up. Flashback. Bill Randle. The man who knew talent before it happened. Bill Randle was a Cleveland disc jockey. Really big in the early 1950s, but back then he was simply a sharp kid who could smell talent before the rest of the world caught the scent. He heard Dean's early recordings and said, "Stuck. That voice is going somewhere." Smooth but tough. Randall began playing Dean's songs on his powerhouse radio show, giving him a spotlight that reached far beyond Ohio. He introduced him to agents. He opened doors. He encouraged him to take the next leap. Dean never forgot that. "Bill Randle, first guy who told me I sounded like somebody," he would later say. The first meeting between Dean and Jerry Lewis was messy, awkward, and nothing close to destiny looking. It was backstage at the Glass Hat in New York. Jerry, skinny, frantic, living off nervous energy, was packing up props from his act. Dean arrived in that effortless way of his, tall, cool, unhurried. Jerry looked at him, puzzled. "Who are you?" "Dean," he said. "I sing a little." Jerry had heard whispers. The guy with the lazy charm. The guy who looked like a matinee idol but joked like a bartender. They didn't spark immediately. It was more like two planets drifting close enough to feel the gravity. But when fate put them on the same stage, improv, chaos, spontaneous riffs, something ignited. a chemistry nobody could manufacture. Jerry later said, "When he walked out there, I felt the room change, and I thought, well, here we go." December 11, 1995. Monday, the anniversary of Dino Jr. This day always broke him. Now, 21 years after losing his son Dean Paul in the 1984 jet crash, he holds his rosary. He doesn't say much. He looks toward the mantel where a photo of Dino Jr. sits. Flashback: the boy running into his arms. The boy picking up a guitar. The boy flying that F-4 Phantom. Grief, quieter now, but permanent. Dean Martin's grief after losing his son Dean Paul was deep, private, and lifelong. He wasn't a man who wore emotion openly, but the loss hollowed something in him that never returned. In the years after the 1987 jet crash, friends noticed a shift. The sparkle in his eyes dimmed, the famous ease in his smile grew rarer, and his once carefree demeanor settled into a quiet withdrawal. He stopped performing as often, stopped socializing, and spent long stretches alone in his Beverly Hills home. He didn't talk about it, not because he didn't feel it, but because the pain was too large to put into words. When he did speak of Dino Jr., his voice softened, as if he were handling something fragile. He kept photos close, especially the one on the mantel, and on anniversaries he would often fall silent, holding his rosary, staring at the boy, forever frozen in time. Those who knew him said that losing Dean Paul was the one heartbreak he could never charm, joke, or drink his way through. It stayed with him always. Grief that became a shadow, quiet but constant, following him for the rest of his life. December 12th, 1995, Beverly Hills. The house is still. Beverly Hills wakes slowly outside, but inside, Dean Martin's world is narrowed to a few shadowed rooms, a soft chair, and the memories that come and go like radio static. It's late morning. The nurse checks on him. Dean's awake, sitting near the window where the sunlight falls thin and winter pale across the carpet. He's wearing a robe too big for his frame now, sleeves swallowing his hands. He nods to her, polite as ever, the old manners still intact. On the small table beside him, a glass of water he hasn't touched, his reading glasses, and the remote to the VCR he barely uses anymore. He isn't watching television today. He's listening.
I can't give you anything but love, baby. That's the only thing I've plenty of, my baby.
From down the hall, the faint echo of an old tape, one of his specials, drifts toward him. It's the warm buzz of applause, Sinatra's voice in rehearsal.
I'd like to see you looking swell, baby. Diamond bracelets, Woolworth ain't gonna sell to you, baby. Till that lucky day.
The nurse left the tape running by accident, but Dean doesn't mind. Those sounds are the closest things to company he allows these days. He closes his eyes and tilts his head back, just a little. Not asleep, daydreaming. The nurse steps in again to adjust the blanket over his knees. "You warm enough, Mr. Martin?" He gives a tiny nod. She hesitates. "Do you want me to turn off the tape?" Dean shakes his head. "Leave it. Sounds familiar." It's the closest he's come to a joke in days. Outside the window, a winter haze settles over the hills between his fingers. Just once. Enough. By late afternoon, the house grows dim. The nurse draws the curtains, sets the lamp to its lowest glow. Dean closes his eyes again. Not sleeping, simply resting. as if gathering whatever strength he has left to make peace with the hours. December 12th ends quietly. Dean Martin, the man who once lit every room he walked into, now sits in a home that mirrors his own gentle exit. Soft lights, familiar echoes, and the quiet company of memories that refuse to leave him. December 13th, 1995. Beverly Hills. Morning comes slowly in the Martin home, the kind of winter morning where the sky is white rather than blue. The house is silent except for the soft hum of the distant, muted sound of a gardener's leaf blower far down the block. Dina wakes with effort today, not pain, just the heaviness that has been settling deeper each week. The nurse helps him to his armchair near the window. When he sits, he breathes in. His lungs struggle, then exhales, as if settling into a memory rather than a piece of furniture. "Thank you," he says quietly. His voice is thin but warm, that familiar velvet dipped now in age and exhaustion. On the small tray, she brings him a cup of weak coffee. He takes one sip, nods, then sets it aside. He's staring at the mantel again. The photo of Dean Paul and the family catches the morning light, and for a moment, the glass glints so brightly it blurs the face. Dean squints, leans forward slightly as though trying to catch a clearer view, not of the picture, but of the past. He whispers, barely audible, "My family. I love them." The nurse understands his gestures now. She puts on another old tape, one from the NBC days, maybe late 60s. The picture flickers, grainy, but Dean doesn't mind. He watches himself enter the frame, tuxedo sharp, smile easy, cigarette poised like punctuation. For a long moment, his eyes don't blink. He's studying the younger man as though he's watching someone else entirely. Then, very softly, he chuckles, not a laugh. Just a single quiet heh, like someone remembering a secret. Around noon, he drifts into a light sleep. The tape plays on. Dean isn't awake enough to follow it, but the sound seems to soothe him. His breathing evens out, and his hand slides from the armrest to his lap, loose, relaxed. When he wakes again, it's mid-afternoon. The winter light is fading. Everything in the room looks slightly blue. The nurse brings him a blanket, tucking it around his legs. He doesn't resist. "You want the TV off?" she asks. He shakes his head weakly. "Let it finish." They sit like that, Dean in his chair, she quietly nearby, until the tape ends. The room returns to silence. Later, just before dusk, Dean murmurs something unexpected. "You know, I had a good run. I can't complain." His eyes aren't sad. They're tired, yes, but peaceful, as if he's recalling a long life. He's not talking to the nurse. He's talking to no one, and to everyone who ever loved him. The nurse places a hand gently on his shoulder. He doesn't pull away. As evening settles over Beverly Hills, the house dims again. Dean closes his eyes, hands folded loosely in his lap, the blanket warm over him. He's not sleeping, just drifting. December 13th ends softly. It's almost Christmas. Dean remains in his chair, listening to memories only he can hear. December 14th, 1995, Beverly Hills. Holiday mail from an old friend. Someone from the music days. Someone who remembered him before the cameras, before the tuxedos. The nurse read it quietly to him once already. Dear Dean, I don't know if you'll remember my handwriting, but I hope you'll remember the words. Because for 2 years, those were my job. I was one of the cue card guys in the first seasons. One of the ones you like to blame. I still tell people I got paid to misspell words for a living. They don't believe me. But you knew better. I wanted to write before Christmas to say thank you, not just for the work, but for the laughs you gave us after the camera stopped. You never treated us like props or furniture. You looked right at us, right through the cards, and made us part of the joke. It was when the card said applause, and you read it out loud. You looked at the crowd and said, "That's very kind of you, but wait till you hear me. We tried to be perfect for you. We really did. But somehow, it was better when we weren't. Because you made mistakes feel like gifts." I hope someone's reading this to you now. If they are, tell them to pause for a second. This part matters. Dean, you made work feel like play. You made long nights feel light. You made grown men in headsets laugh so hard they had to turn away from the cameras. That's not something you forget. I don't know where you are this Christmas or how strong you feel, but I do know this. Somewhere in a storage room at NBC Universal, there are cue cards with coffee stains and crossed out words that still smell like cigarettes and laughter, and every one of them remembers you. Merry Christmas, boss. If you read this and stumble over a word, don't worry. We probably spelled it wrong on purpose. With love and gratitude, one of your cue card guys. First Seasons, The Dean Martin Show. He rests his fingertips on the envelope as though touching the pass-through paper. Around mid-morning, he nods toward the sideboard, where the tape collection sits. The nurse selects a familiar one without asking, an old Christmas special. Dean always seemed softer at Christmas, even now, even at the end. He watches himself for a long moment. The younger Dean on the screen is strong, broad-shouldered, leaning into a mic with that effortless warmth. The contrast between the man on the screen and the man in the chair is stark. But Dean seems unfazed. Instead, he smiles. Outside, the fog thickens. December 14th ends gently, another page slipping quietly into the story of his final Christmas.